Okay, state. We're in your case. Call your next witness.
We can call Jose Torres.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Morning. You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Torres, could you please state your name and spell your name for me?
Jose Torres, Jose Torres.
Mr. Torres, did you witness the fatal shooting of Laquan McDonald on October 20th, 2014?
Yes, I did.
I'd like to provide the court with an overview of your testimony. First,
I object. We don't need an overview. We need a question to the witness.
Thank you for your commentary, Mr. McKay. Your objection is noted but overruled.
First, are you able to testify about what you saw of the shooting?
Yes.
And second, are you able to testify about why you came forward regarding the shooting?
Yes.
Before we get to the first topic, I'd like for you to first tell the court a little bit more about yourself. Do you work?
Yes, I do.
Where?
I work for a bank on the north side of the city.
What's your position?
Maintenance.
And how long have you been there?
Next month will be 28 years.
Do you live in Chicago?
Yes, I do.
Where do you live?
On the south side of the city.
How long have you been here?
In Chicago?
Yes.
Pretty much all my life.
So now I'd like to talk a little bit about October 20th, 2014. Where were you the evening of October 20th, 2014?
I was at home.
What were you doing?
Well, my son was feeling ill that night, and we decided to take him to the hospital that evening.
Who decided to take him to the hospital?
My wife and I.
Did you leave home to go to the hospital?
Yes, I did.
And who left?
Just my son and myself.
All right. How did you end up going to the hospital?
I drove. I took Pulaski Avenue, traveled north. I was trying to get on the Stevenson Expressway.
And was it just you and your son in the car?
Yes.
Were you doing anything while you were driving?
I was actually talking with my wife over the Bluetooth on the vehicle, just to make sure that a relative of mine that works at the hospital we were heading to was aware that we were on our way.
What route did you take?
Pulaski Avenue. I traveled north from Pulaski.
Did anything happen as you were driving on Pulaski Avenue?
Yes, I pulled over twice because I saw police vehicles traveling behind me, and they were passing me up, so I pulled over twice.
And do you know about when you pulled over the first time?
No, I can't remember exactly where I pulled over, but I know it was way before where the incident happened.
So you pulled over one time. Did you keep driving?
Yeah, I continued driving, and I believe I saw another police vehicle, and I pulled over again.
A second time?
Correct.
Right. And did you keep driving after that second time?
Yes, I did.
And then how far did you get driving after that second
time? Well, I continued driving until I reached 4100 block of South Pulaski. And that's pretty much where I had to pull over because there was vehicles in the middle of the street.
What kind of vehicles were in the middle of the street?
Well, it was one squad car that I noticed in the middle of the street.
So now, can you describe for the court this area around 41st and Pulaski at the time?
At that time, well, there's two companies on the east side of the street, which one of them was Broker Point. There was a Dunkin' Donuts there. On the west side, they were in the process of building a strip mall that's there now. But there was nothing there. It was just a construction fence, and there was a tarp over the fence.
And did you continue driving after you got to 41st and Pulaski?
No, I had to pull over because of the police activity in front of me.
Now, you say police activity. What kind of police activity did you see?
I noticed there was a police car that was following an individual that crossed from pretty much like from the east side or the west side of the street, and they were alongside of this individual in the middle of Pulaski Avenue. As soon as I saw that, I pulled over. And shortly after that, there was another vehicle, a police car, that came around, and it was heading in my direction. And I kind of panicked a little bit, and I backed up because I thought that I was too close to what was going on.
So you were going north,
Yes, I was.
and is it your testimony that this car turned and was coming?
That vehicle, looked around the vehicle that was alongside the street, and came flying in my direction, and then went on a southwest direction, an angle. That's how it stopped.
Okay. Do you know how many vehicles were in the area at that?
At that point, when all I noticed was those two police cars. Shortly after I backed up because I thought I was too close, I saw it was another vehicle that pulled right in front of me.
What kind of vehicle was that?
The regular civilian vehicle.
And so where would your car have been stopped relative to the area? Any businesses nearby?
Yeah, I was in front of a company, I believe it's Focal Point. It's called Focal Point. And then north of that company, there was a Dunkin' Donuts. I remember seeing there was a Burger King on the west side of the street as well.
Now, you mentioned earlier you saw someone walking down the street.
Yes.
Can you describe that individual? First of all, could you see that individual?
Yeah, I can see his face, but I can see there was an individual walking down Pulaski Avenue, the middle of Pulaski Avenue.
And can you describe what you saw of that individual? What did that person look like?
I believe he had a black sweater and blue jeans on. And I can see that the police was alongside of him, and they were just trying to get him to stop, I guess, and he was just walking away from the police.
And could you observe what he was doing?
All I saw him doing really was just trying to get away from the police.
What do you mean by trying to
Just
get away from
walking away.
And what direction was he walking?
Towards the west side of the street. So he was heading south, so much like southwest.
And what was on the west side of the street? You could see?
That was actually where they were building the strip mall. So at that time, there was a construction fence, and with the green tarp, it was over the fence.
So from your vantage point, he was walking toward the fence.
Correct.
Could you see if he had anything in his hands?
No, I didn't see anything.
Could you hear anything?
The only thing I heard was the police shouting. I couldn't make out what they were saying. My focus was on Laquan McDonald.
Did you know his name at the time?
No, I didn't.
So your focus was on the young man who you saw walking down the street.
Correct.
And what happened after you saw him walking down the street?
Well, once I heard the shouting, I saw Laquan McDonald just turn his head to look in their direction. They're yelling at him, which anybody will turn their heads if somebody's yelling at them.
That is sustained. It's stricken. The court will not consider it. Just listen to the question and answer only the question that's asked.
So he turned
There's no question pending. Next question.
What did you see him do, if anything?
He just turned his head in their direction and to look at him.
And did you see him do anything else?
He just continued walking away.
And did you see anything next?
As soon as I saw him turn his head to look at them, shortly after that, I heard the gunshots.
Did you see who was shooting?
No,
Did you know who was shooting?
no,
Did you know how many people were shooting?
no, not at the time.
Did you see Laquan McDonald do anything next?
Well, as soon as I heard the gunshots, he fell to the ground. There was a pause in shooting. All I saw was him just move. Seemed like he was in pain. And
That's sustained.
So what did you see him do?
so he just moved. He wasn't doing anything threatening. He's just moved. It's, like I said, it seemed like he was in pain.
That's sustained. Ask another question.
After seeing him, well, where was he moving? Was he standing or on the ground?
No, he was still laying on the ground.
So you saw him on the ground move.
Yes.
After seeing him on the ground move, did you do anything?
No, I was still focused on him. As soon as he started moving, then that's when all the other shots started coming in.
Do you know how many shots you heard?
Well, from the initial start, I don't know how many were in the beginning, but he fell to the ground as soon as I heard the shots. After the pause, there was so many that I was upset about it.
Judge, I have objection right there. Answer. That's not responsive. The question was, how many shots did you hear?
Okay. It's not responsive. It's, that portion of his testimony is stricken. So again, just try to listen to the question and answer the question. They can always ask another question, okay?
Did you do anything after you heard the second round of shots?
Actually, yes. Excuse
What
me.
did you do?
Am I allowed to use the word? Did I use that? Judge?
Well, did you say something?
Yes, I did.
What did you say?
When they continued shooting, I was upset and I said, why the fuck are they still shooting them?
Did you
when
do
it's on the
anything
ground.
next?
No, I was waiting. There was other police vehicles that were arriving. And I was just waiting there to see what the police pretty much instructed me to do, because I felt that I couldn't leave because there was other vehicles approaching.
How long were you there between the last shots that you heard and the time that you left?
I don't know exactly how long I was there, but I know for a fact that it wasn't that long.
Did you ever see Laquan McDonald get up off the ground?
No.
Did you leave the scene?
I did because I was instructed to.
How were you instructed to leave?
A police officer, he took out his flashlight and he shined it at the vehicle that was parked in front of me, and he just gestured with his hands. He told him to leave. And right after he did that to that vehicle, I don't remember if that vehicle was left, and then he did the same thing to me and just basically shined a flashlight to get my attention, and just with his hand just gave a gesture for me to make a U-turn and leave.
And how close were you to the area where Laquan McDonald was on the ground at that point?
Well, like I said, I had to back up because the vehicle that came in my direction, which is now I know that's the vehicle that Dyke was on. I was next to it and I had to back up, so that's pretty much how close I was to Laquan, where Laquan was at. So,
can you estimate how many feet or yards?
all I can say is there's pretty much like a kitty corner angle that I can see him from my view, and I want to say it's just 2 car spaces away or car lengths away.
So after you say a police officer used a flashlight to direct you to leave.
Correct.
Did that officer come over to your car?
No, he just from a distance he just shined the flashlight. I mean, just made the gesture for me to leave.
And did you leave immediately?
Yes.
What did you do after you left?
Well, I still had to bring my son to the hospital, so I made a U-turn. I started traveling southbound on Pulaski, and I believe when I reached 47th Street, I made a right. I was just trying to go all the way around to get on Cicero Avenue, so I can get on the Stevenson Expressway and it's off of Cicero Avenue.
Did you see anything as you were going southbound away from the scene?
I remember seeing the ambulance that was trying to pull out of that fire department that was there. I believe it's on 47th Street. I believe I stopped because they were trying to get out.
You stopped?
I stopped right on 47th Street to let the ambulance come out. So.
Did you have any conversations with any police officers that night?
No.
After you continued driving, where did you go?
I was taking my son to the hospital, took him to Lutheran General.
Now, at some point, did you come forward to report what you saw?
Yes, I did. It took me a while.
When did that happen in relation to the incident?
I want to say about 2 to 3 days. I can't remember exactly, but it wasn't long afterwards.
And how is it that you came forward to report something about this incident?
Well, the reason why I came forward was because the following morning, the day after the incident, I turned on the news. I wanted to see if there was anything on the news about the shooting, And when I heard the police spokesperson say that he was lunging, that Laquan McDonald was lunging at the police, and when I found out that all he had was a knife, I told my wife at that moment, I'm like, they're lying. This is not what happened.
So what did you do next?
Well, I discussed it with my wife, and she was kind of worried for me to step forward. I told her I had to say something because I can't. This is just like a burden on my shoulders, and it's eating away at me. And for the next few days, I couldn't sleep. And I told my wife, I'm just going to step forward. I'm going to contact somebody about this.
Did you contact somebody?
Yes, it was IPRA at the time.
And what is it?
I guess it's independent review board for the police shootings.
Why did you contact it?
I remember seeing on the news before that they would always investigate police shootings.
Did you know someone at it?
No.
How did you contact
I just looked them up on the internet.
Did you speak with someone?
Yes, I did.
Do you know who you spoke with?
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
Did you speak to them on the phone or in person?
I spoke to him on the phone, and then we scheduled a date for me to come in and pretty much give my statement.
Did you give that statement in person with IPRA?
Yes, I did.
At their office?
Yes.
Has any member of the Chicago Police Department ever contacted you about what you saw?
No.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Cross? Mr. McKay, you're going to go first? Yes, certainly.
Mr. Torres, how are you?
Good.
Good. You just said a second ago that when you saw the news the next morning, the spokesman said that McDonald had lunged. Correct?
Well, he made a comment basically saying that what he's supposed to do when a crazed maniac lunges or comes at you with a knife, wielding a knife at you. He said something about having a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. So something like that. It's just like a smart remark.
And that man that said that, he had white hair.
His name is Pat Candle.
Right. Thank you, Mr. His name was not David March, was it?
I didn't say that.
The man that you saw on the television the next day was not this man, David March.
No.
And when you said to your wife, they're lying, what you really should say is, isn't it correct, that Pat Camden was lying?
Well, he got his information from somebody at the scene.
Well, you don't know that, do you?
No, I don't.
And in fact, Mr. Torres, you called Mr. Camden a police spokesman. Is that correct?
I believe that's what is said on the news. He's a spokesperson for the police department.
Well, actually, he's not a Chicago police officer, but a spokesman for FOP, the police union.
Okay.
Isn't that what you learned?
No, I can't remember exactly what they put on the news, but I just know he was speaking up for the police.
Well, you're speaking for the police union, not the police. You understand that's two different things.
Okay. Well, I know that now.
So you're telling us that you're an eyewitness, correct?
Yes.
And even though you claimed you were 2 car lengths away from McDonald, you did not see a weapon in McDonald's hand.
No.
And even though you were, even though you claimed you were 2 car lengths away, you only heard 7 shots.
No.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know how many shots there were. I can never say how many shots. I thought at the time that it was 7, but I'm not trained, so.
Would you agree then that when you talked to IPRA on October 28th, 2014, you told them that you thought you heard 7 shots?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. And even though you're 2 car lengths away, you didn't see who was doing the shooting, right?
No.
You couldn't even tell if it was one person shooting or more than one person
Correct.
shooting, right?
Mhm.
And even though you were focused on what was there in front of you, you couldn't even remember if you were looking out your windshield window or your side view window, correct?
Yeah, it's been a long ago. I can't remember now. So
Well-
I just know I had a clear view of what was going on.
Well, let me ask you again. Is it true that though you were focused and only 2 car lengths away, you cannot say whether you were looking out your windshield or your side window?
This is a long time ago. You can't expect me to remember which two.
Was there anything that might refresh your recollection, Mr. Torres?
Maybe.
Well, I'd like to direct your attention to the date of April 15th, 2015. On that date at about 9:30 in the morning, you happened to be at the federal building testifying before a federal grand jury.
Okay.
And on that morning, you were present in that grand jury with the United States Attorney Zachary Farden and his partner, Miss April Perry. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I can't remember names.
Okay. But be that as it may, whatever their names were, before you before you answered their questions, you raised your right hand.
Yes.
And you swore to tell the truth. Right?
Yeah.
Is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
I'm gonna have to please keep your voice up. I'm just a few feet from
Okay.
you and I'm having trouble hearing you, okay?
No, I'm sorry. My mistake, Counsel. In my mistake to you, Mr. Torres, actually, the statement I'm going to refer your direct your attention to is a statement you made much earlier, and that was a statement you made to IPRA on October 28th, 2014.
Okay.
And before we get into it, sir, this was just 8 days after the incident, right?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly.
Well, October 28th, 2014 would be 8 days after October
Okay.
20th, right? Now, the statement at IPRA, you went to their offices on Chicago near Ashland Avenue, didn't you?
Yeah.
And you talked to a gentleman named Neubeck, Neubeck. That sound about right?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
And that statement was around 3:57 in the afternoon, correct?
Yeah, I don't remember the time.
But it was in the afternoon, wasn't it?
Do you have documents there that says that they
Yeah,
must have?
and since it was only 8 days after the incident, would you agree with Mr. Torres that the events were still fresh in your mind then, more so than today?
I believe so. Yeah.
Page 21, line 11.
We don't have any skip. Guaranteed.
Not for civilian witness. Yes.
Yeah.
You need a moment.
I'm ready.
I'm talking to the state because no, you're good, Mr. Safer? Okay. Ms.
Yes.
Bonham, you're good? Okay.
May I
I'm sorry. You may.
Hey, Mr. Torres, will you ask this question? And by the way, at IPRA, with this investigator named Neubeck, you swore to tell the truth before the interview, correct?
I swear to tell the truth anytime I gave this thing.
All right. So to answer my question, that day you swore to tell the truth.
Yes,
And the statement was recorded, wasn't it?
I believe so.
We asked this question, did you give this answer? Question. Okay, and how many shots do you think you heard? Answer, I believe 7. Does that refresh your recollection about how many shots you thought you heard?
Yes.
Now, even though you say you were focused and you're only 2 car lengths away, you can't even tell us if Mr. McDonald was on his stomach or on his back on the ground. Is that correct?
He was on his stomach or on his back. I remember him falling, and I just remember him. There was a pause, I can't remember exactly what position he was laying on the ground.
So, to answer my question, Mr. Torres, you can't tell us, even though you had that view, whether McDonald was on his stomach or on his back on the ground. Is that correct?
I can't remember every single detail.
And by the way, before you and your son Xavier pulled up and you had that view, you had no idea what McDonald was doing earlier that evening, several blocks away, correct?
No.
Because when you first saw McDonald, he was in the middle of Pulaski.
When I was driving up to the scene, I noticed somebody on the street coming from the Birkin direction, walking down, and then we were walking down Pulaski.
So he was in the middle of Pulaski when you saw him the first time.
Well, no. I remember as I'm driving, I seen the police vehicles in front, and I seen somebody in the street. I didn't know I don't know if it was a person crossing but then when I realized the police car was alongside of this person.
Did you hear my question?
I heard you. And I'm explaining to you what I saw.
Can you answer my question? When you saw this person, who you later learned to be Mr. McDonald, was he in the middle of Pulaski?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, when McDonald was on the ground, isn't it true that it looked like to you that Mr. McDonald was trying to get up?
No.
Well,
If you wait, can I say something?
no,
If you're gonna,
no.
okay, go ahead.
I'm going to ask you a question, Mr. Torres. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
I want to direct your attention now to this statement you made before IPRA on October 28th, 2014. Okay? Again, at about 3:57 in the afternoon, were you with Investigator Newbick giving
Yes.
a statement? And these events were still fresh in your mind, right?
I already said yes.
And because you were placed under oath, you wanted to tell the truth?
Correct.
And you did tell the truth.
Correct.
And the statement was being recorded, right?
Yes.
And while that statement was being recorded, and while you were under oath, were you asked this question and did you give this answer, Mr. Torres? Question. And describe these movements, I guess. Do you see how's he moving? Or answer, to be honest with you, it looks like he was trying to get up. Were you asked that question and did you give that answer under oath on October 28th, 2014 at the offices of the Independent Police Review Authority?
No.
I'm sorry?
There's more to that. You're just reading part of that.
Did you say those words?
It was inferred to me if he was getting up. I never said he was getting up. They asked me if I believed that he was getting up. I said I didn't know. I thought he might have, but I didn't know. But if you continue reading it, I corrected it.
That's sustained. Sir, you have to just listen to the question, answer the question, and you can't just add a complete narrative. Let the attorney ask another question.
Okay.
Okay?
Mr. Torres, I'll repeat it again. And I'll ask you again, did you say this while you were under oath on October 28th, 2014? Question. And describe those movements, I guess. Do you see what? How's he moving? Or answer by Mr. Torres, to be honest with you, it looks like he was trying to get up. Were you asked that question, and did you give that answer under oath on October 28th, 2014?
Not to my recollection.
Now, besides that, would you agree, Mr. Torres, that before Mr. McDonald was shot, it looked to you like he was trying to escape?
Just walking away.
Did it look to you that he was trying to escape? Yes.
That's
or
what
no?
you want to call it. And I saw him walking away.
I'll ask you again. Did it look to you that Mr. McDonald was trying to escape?
That's what you want to call it.
Well,
He was
I'm
walking
asking
away.
you, did you say, strike that, are you saying today that it looked like he was trying to escape?
I don't remember exactly what I said.
Well, let's go back, sir, to October 28, 2014, at the offices of ICRA, while you were under oath and while you were being recorded. We asked this question, and did you give this answer under oath? Question. By Mr. Newbeck. Okay. And what was right before, prior to when the officer or officers fired their weapons, what was the kid doing? Well, how, I mean, exactly, do you remember watching them specifically, or an answer by you, Mr. Torres? To be honest with you, the kid looked like he was, like he wasn't moving like in a normal way. It seemed like he was distraught. And to be honest with you, I think he was looking like for a way out. He was trying to get escape. That's what I observed. Mr. Torres, were you asked that question by Mr. Newbeck? Did you give that answer to Mr. Newbeck while you were under oath on October 28th, 2014?
I remember saying that he was trying to get away from them.
And you used the word escape.
Yeah, I can't remember. So if you have it, I might have used it.
And to be clear, while McDonald was standing in the middle of Pulaski, you saw Mr. McDonald turn his face at the police officers. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Now, after this happened, you and Xavier were still in the northbound lanes, correct?
North. No.
Well, let me put it
That'll
this
be
way.
east side.
Yeah, facing northbound.
Facing north. Correct.
And you told us that there was a police officer that was flashing at the driver ahead of you, correct?
He used his flashlight.
Use his flashlight. And he was indicating the flashlight movement, correct?
No. I know exactly what he was saying.
No.
He said, make a U-turn.
Sir, he didn't say anything to you. He just motioned with the flashlight. Isn't
Yeah,
that
but the way
correct?
you're motioning it right now, that's not the way he did it.
Show me how he did it.
He basically make a U-turn to leave.
Your Honor, could you do it again?
He just went to go to leave.
May the record reflect that Mr. Torres put his right hand in front and from right to left made a turning motion. Would that be fair?
Well, that's what I saw him do.
That
Okay.
the record will so reflect.
But you'll agree with me, Mr. Torres, that police officer didn't verbally say anything to you at all.
No, but I pretty much got what he meant.
And when this police officer motioned like that with his flashlight, you didn't see any ambulance at that moment, did you?
No.
And you can't describe this police officer. And
Well, I didn't see. I can tell you he wasn't African American. At the time I didn't know if he was Hispanic or Caucasian. So,
you were looking right at him, though.
well, it was from a distance. So,
More than two
well,
car
it was
lengths?
pretty much he was, but there was a vehicle in front of me, so yeah, 2 car lengths.
So one car length, two car lengths?
Yeah, he was a little further in front of the car that was in front of me.
Okay. But clearly, he was wearing a uniform, police uniform.
Correct.
You knew he was the police.
Right.
You couldn't identify that officer's face from the picture.
No.
And when he made that movement, you then made a U-turn, correct?
Right.
And which means that you went from going northbound on Pulaski to going southbound on Pulaski.
That's correct.
And you'll agree with me, will you not, Mr. Torres, that that police officer, whoever that officer was the only police officer that flashed you to turn around, right?
Correct.
No other officer flashed you
No,
that night. Flashed you with a flashlight.
I got you.
And sir, I don't mean to overstate the obvious, but you're a good father, are you not?
Yes, I am.
And I think you have 2 or 3 kids.
2 kids.
2 kids. And you love all of them very much, correct?
Yes.
As do I. I love my kids too. And if Xavier was sick that night.
Correct.
He was, 21 years old?
About that.
And he'd been sick for a while, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was having trouble breathing, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was weak. He was fatigued, wasn't he?
Yes.
You and your wife, and even Xavier, you weren't sure what was wrong with him, correct?
At that time, we didn't know.
And it was so serious in your mind that he needed to go to the hospital, right?
That's correct.
And you or your wife called your sister-in-law who worked at Lutheran General Hospital, right?
My wife did.
Your wife did?
Yeah.
And she did that thinking that maybe with Xavier's aunt at the hospital, he would get good care.
Correct.
And it was imperative to you as a father, Mr. Torres, to get Xavier to that hospital ASAP, right?
Yes.
As would any responsible father. Agreed?
Yes.
You were in a hurry to get your son, who was sick, very, very sick, to that hospital, weren't you?
You're making it sound a little more dramatic than what it was. He was sick and I was bringing him to the hospital, but it wasn't like I needed an ambulance.
No, because you were driving, right?
Right.
And Lutheran General is in Park Ridge, Illinois, right?
Correct.
And you were living on the south side of Chicago at that time, right? I'm not going to ask your address, but much further south than 41st and Pulaski, correct?
Correct.
And it's from your house, not mentioning your address, it's about 34, 35 miles to Park Ridge, right?
Yeah, I've never checked to see, but it sounds about right.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
And by the way, after the shooting happened, Xavier wanted you to take off and leave that scene, correct?
Yes, he did.
Now, you had a cell phone that night.
Yes.
Xavier had a cell phone that night.
Correct.
With the Bluetooth capability in your car that night, you were able to talk to your wife.
Yeah, she was already on the phone prior to anything happening.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
And on the way from that scene, going southbound down Pulaski, westbound on 47, and then northbound on Cicero back to the Stevenson, you didn't call 911, did you?
No.
You didn't call to communicate to any police department what you were just seen, right?
No.
And on your way from the Stevenson all the way up to Park Ridge, Illinois, you didn't use your cell phone to call 911, right?
You didn't need to. The police was there.
Uh-huh.
That's
But-
what normally shows up when you call 911.
So you did not call the police to report what you just seen?
No.
And nor did Xavier, with his cell phone, call 911 while you were driving from 41st and Pulaski all the way up to Park Ridge.
No.
And while you were at the hospital, waiting for the doctors and nurses to treat your son, you didn't call 911.
No.
Even though it had upset you to the point that you swore when you heard these shots strike this man on the ground. Correct?
Correct.
Now, while your wife was on the phone and Bluetooth, you didn't tell her to hang up and call the police, did you?
No.
Now, after this happened, let me ask you this. What time was Xavier released from Lutheran General Hospital?
I can't remember.
Well, was it that night before midnight? Was it the next morning?
Might have been the next morning. I'm not sure.
Well, where were you?
We
Where were you when you saw the news story when Pat Camden is mentioning the word lunch?
Oh, that was early in the morning when I first woke up. So
Where were you?
in my bedroom.
So Xavier home that morning?
Yes.
Okay. At any time from the moment you got to the hospital until the moment you got back home, you didn't call 911.
Again, the police was there. When you call 911, you get the police.
But you never made a call to alert any police authority that what you saw just that night bothered you. Correct?
No, I gave the police the benefit of the doubt. So
All right. Because, would you agree, you didn't know what McDonald did before you and Xavier pulled up, right?
no, I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I didn't know what Laquan McDonald had in his hand, or if he had anything, or what was going on. Can I continue?
No. I'll ask you a question. You never even made an anonymous phone call to the police that night, correct?
No.
So, after Pat Camden said what he said on the news, this upset you quite a bit.
Oh, I told my wife that that's not what happened.
So the answer is yes, it upset you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And as a result, you called IPRA.
Correct.
And how many days after Pat Camden's press conference did you call IPRA?
I can't remember.
Well, was it the same day you saw Pat Camden say the word lunch? Or was it the next day or the
It
following day?
wasn't the same day because like I said, I couldn't sleep because of what I witnessed and what they were saying.
Yeah, okay. But at some point you called IPRA and an appointment was made, right?
Right.
And that appointment was this date of October 28, 2014.
Okay.
And you told Mr. Newbeck under oath a lot of things more than what you and I just discussed, right?
I can't remember exactly what I saw.
Yeah. And also, at some point after you gave your statement to IPRA, somebody came to your house, right?
Yes.
Who was that person?
Well, he showed up twice. The person's name is Jamie Calvin.
And,
I'm sorry, Jamie
Calvin.
Calvin?
Can you spell his name?
JAMIE KALVEN. Not sure if that's correct or not.
He came to your house the first time, but you weren't home?
Right. I wasn't home.
But when he came the second time, you did come to the door.
Correct.
All right. And that date, when you met Mr. Calvin, how long was that after your statement to IPRA?
I can't remember. As soon as my wife told me that he came to my door, I contacted IPRA. I was upset because my information was leaked out.
I'm sorry, why were you upset?
Because my information was leaked out.
Because you thought that your interview with IPRA would be confidential, right?
Correct.
And when you did meet Mr. Calvin, did you tell him you were upset?
Well, I didn't know who he was in the beginning, so
Did he identify himself other than by saying his name?
he just gave his name, and but I still didn't trust who he was until I did some research on him.
Well, we'll get into that, but when he told you his name, what happened then at your door?
I can't remember exactly. I just know he was questioning about the shooting.
And you gave Mr. Calvin details about the shooting, didn't you?
Not that first day that I met him.
Not that first day?
I don't believe so because I didn't know who he was.
So, at some point, you did give him details about the shooting.
After I did some research.
Let's talk about that research. Would you Google his name?
Yes, and then I just kept digging more information online to see what he was doing, what he did.
Okay, and you learned what he did was he was a person who wrote articles criticizing the police, right?
That's not the way I looked at it.
Oh, how did you look
I looked at it like it was a person that tries to get the truth out.
about anti-police matters, correct?
No, it's
Well, did you, in fact, after you did your research, by the way, when you met Kelvin at the door, did he tell you how he got your name and address?
he said he had a source.
Source where?
At that time, I don't believe he mentioned it, but I already knew where he got it from because that's the only agency that I spoke to at that time.
He told you he had a source at IPRA.
So I can't remember if he said it, but I already knew it was from IPRA because
Because you complained to him.
I didn't complain. I gave him my statement.
Well, no, you called IPRA after Mr. Calvin
Oh,
first
yes,
came to
yeah. I didn't complain. I called him and I just stressed out the fact that I didn't appreciate that my information was leaked out, and I thought that was supposed to be confidential.
And IPRA said they'd look into it.
Correct.
So after you did your research on Mr. Calvin, that's when you gave details about the night of the shooting, right?
Right.
How many times did you meet Mr. Calvin besides that second time he came to your house?
I can't remember. Maybe twice, 3 times. I don't know.
Where would these meetings take place, Mr. Torres?
Came to me.
At your house.
My house, yeah.
And when he came to your house and interviewed you, was he taking any notes?
I believe so.
Was he recording your statement in fashion?
Like a recorder, and I can't remember.
Did you tell him that you wish to remain anonymous?
At first, yes.
Did it change?
Well, I don't think he's ever put my name out there, so he kept me anonymous the whole time.
Did you later meet a man named Craig Futterman?
Craig Butterman. I can't remember. Can you tell me who this person is?
Well, did Mr. Kelvin introduce you to a man named Craig Futterman, a professor at the University of Chicago?
See, I don't remember if I met him or not.
Okay. When you say you don't remember,
I don't think so. Because I'm trying to think back who came to my house. I had the FBI came to my house. I had it was lawyers, I guess, representing the McDonald family. So I can't remember exactly.
Well, let me ask you that. If lawyers representing McDonald's family came to your house,
Yes.
how did they get your address?
I guess it was Jamie Galvin, I guess. I don't know.
So Mr. Calvin did release information about you to at least a third party.
Correct.
How'd that make you feel?
At that point, I already knew what Jamie Galvin was about, so I didn't mind speaking to the attorneys.
He was a critic of police, correct?
Again, that's the way you see it.
You don't see it that way.
No.
Okay. At any time you were with Mr. Calvin during these meetings, did he tell you not to call the Chicago Police Department?
No.
Did he tell you not to contact the Cook County State's Attorney's Office?
No.
But truth be told, you never contacted the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, correct?
I went to IPRA. I figured that's enough.
Did you hear my question?
I heard you.
The truth of the matter is, you never contacted the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, did you?
No.
You never contacted the U.S. Attorney's Office, did you?
No.
You never contacted the Cook County Sheriff's Department, did you?
No.
Is that a no?
No.
I think so. You never contacted the Illinois State Police.
No.
Heck, you never even contacted the FBI. They had to come to see you.
Correct.
The guards at the bank you work at, they're off-duty police officers, aren't they?
Some of them.
Yeah, you never asked those bank guards to call the Chicago Police Department for it, did you?
No.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Torres, you testified at the trial of Jason Van Dyke. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
In this building, right?
Yes.
In Judge Gwan's courtroom.
Correct.
And your son Xavier testified as well, correct?
Correct.
Is your son Xavier here today?
No.
During Jason Van Dyke's trial, your son Xavier testified before you, right?
So this line of question is beyond the scope and irrelevant.
No.
Well, I don't know if it's relevant or not. At this point, I'm going to allow it. If it's irrelevant, I'll disregard it.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry, your objection's noted, but overruled.
Mr. Torres, your son Xavier testified a few days before you did, correct?
I believe so.
Yes. And you watched Xavier's testimony on television, didn't you?
Well, nobody instructed me, told me that I couldn't see it. So
Did you hear my question?
I heard you. Yeah. Yes.
So my question is, you watched Xavier's testimony on television, didn't you?
Yes.
And after you watched Xavier's testimony on television, you went to court and you testified the next week, right?
Correct.
And in doing so,
Same. I believe it was the same week, wasn't it? I
I'm
don't,
sorry, what?
I don't know if it was the same week or just the following week. I can't remember.
By watching your son's testimony on television before you testified, you were violating Judge Gaughan's court order regarding the exclusion of witnesses, weren't you?
Not that I was aware of.
That's what you were aware of. Did Mr. McMahon, the prosecutor, or anybody from his team tell you and Xavier you cannot watch the other's testimony before you testify?
I was told not to communicate with Xavier about the case, not to talk
Who
to him
told you
about it.
that?
One of the attorneys, I can't remember exactly which one.
One of the state's attorneys in the Van Dyke case?
Yes,
Man or woman?
it was a man.
Joe McMahon or one of his assistants?
It's one of his assistants, I believe.
Tall guy or short guy? Well, how about Judge Gaughan? Did Judge Gaughan tell you and Xavier that you cannot watch a previous witness's testimony before you testify?
I never talked to him.
Well, I didn't ask if you talked to Judge Gaughan. Did he order you and other witnesses to not watch a previous witness's testimony?
Yeah, I was going to give me an order, but we never spoke.
All right, so I need to be clear. Did Mr. McMahon's assistant tell you or not that you cannot watch your son's testimony before yours? So your testimony here today is that you weren't violating a court order. Is that your testimony?
I didn't feel I did. I wasn't instructed not to.
Okay, and by the way, the reason I'm asking these questions is that you gave an interview to a Tribune reporter after Van Dyke's trial, right?
Right.
And you and Xavier went back to 41st and Pulaski and stood for some pictures by focal point, didn't you?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm a moment, Judge.
Certainly, take your time.
Mr. Torres, regarding your statement with IPRA, there was actually 2 appointments to talk to an IFRA investigator. The first appointment was canceled by you and then rescheduled for October 28th. Isn't that true?
I can't remember.
Okay. But does it sound about right that you gave your statement about 8 days after the incident?
I don't remember exactly how many days, but I know I did give my statement, so.
And that investigator actually had suggested an earlier interview that you could not attend, so you needed to show up on the 28th instead. Does that sound about right?
Like I said, I can't remember that, so.
Okay. While you were at the scene, after the shooting, did you stop and tell that officer with the flashlight, hey, here's my name, here's my phone number? Did you ever do that?
This is the first time I ever witnessed anything like this, so I don't know what I was supposed to do, what I wasn't supposed to do.
So the answer is no. You never told that police officer with a flashlight your name and a contact number, correct?
He didn't ask me for it.
You didn't offer it either, did you?
He wanted me to leave. What do you want?
You didn't offer your contact information to that police
Again,
officer.
this is the first time I ever witnessed something like this, and I didn't know what to do.
Did you hear my question?
I heard you, and I said no.
Can you answer my question?
I am answering it.
The answer is no. You never gave that officer your contact information.
That's correct.
You never gave any other police officer on the scene that night before you left your contact information. Isn't that correct?
I was told to leave.
So
No.
no, you didn't.
Right.
Thank you. And you didn't, Mr. Torres, you didn't see any pedestrians out there that night. Isn't that correct?
Other than Laquan, McDonald, the police, cars, no.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
One second. Just trying to catch up on my notes. Okay. Mr. Pugh.
Mr. Torres, you testified in the case of the People versus Jason Van Dyke, is that right?
Yes.
You were prepared to testify for that trial by meeting with the prosecutors ahead of that trial, correct?
It was just a short meeting.
Let's see if you understand my question. Did you meet with the prosecutors in preparation of your testimony before you testified in the Van Dyke trial? Yes or no?
It was the day of, yes.
So yes, you had met with these prosecutors who are here today to prepare you for your testimony ahead of trial, right?
Yes.
Your son, Xavier, was also prepped by the prosecutors in the Van Dyke case, is that right?
I don't know if you consider prep. They just basically wanted me to tell them exactly what happened that day.
Oh, so you're telling us that the prosecutors in the People versus Jason Van Dyke had you prepare your son to testify?
No.
Did you and your son go down and meet separately with the prosecutors ahead of your testimony?
And I went. I don't know about my son.
You don't. You have no idea whether or not your son went down to meet with the prosecutors in the Van Dyke case.
I wasn't there.
Okay. So you never discussed it with your son whether he was going to meet with you?
I was instructed not to discuss anything with my son.
Okay. And you were also told that you would not be present in the courtroom when your son testified. Isn't that right?
I don't remember that.
Well, do you remember having to remain in the hall and a prosecutor coming out to get you to bring you in the courtroom to testify?
We weren't there the same day.
I'm going to ask I'm pretty good at asking questions, so let's see if you understand, all right?
You're asking me if I saw my son.
No, I asked you. Let me finish, okay? When you testified at the Van Dyke trial before Judge Gaunt upstairs in this building, were you required to remain in the hall and were brought into the courtroom for your testimony?
Yes.
Were you escorted out of the courtroom when your testimony was over?
That's correct.
And you already told us you were told not to discuss your testimony with anyone. Is that right?
Correct.
And you knew, withdraw. When your son Xavier testified a few days ahead of you, were you in the courtroom when he testified?
No.
And you knew you couldn't be in the courtroom when he testified, didn't you?
No,
Was any of your family members there when your son Xavier testified?
I don't believe so.
You say you don't believe so.
I don't think so. No,
What do you
nobody was.
don't think so?
No, there was nobody there.
Okay. And you watched on closed circuit television your son testify, is that right?
Yes,
And you watched him get cross-examined by the defense, am I right?
correct.
And then you later told the reporter from the Tribune that you did that because you were going to be ready. Isn't that right, when you testified? You know what you told the Chicago Tribune?
So
Did you tell the Chicago
said I
Tribune
wanted-
that yes or no?
yes,
Yes. You have met with a variety of media outlets regarding your testimony and your claimed witness to these events, isn't that right?
variety.
Well, you told us you met with Mr. Calvin a few times, is that right?
He's a
reporter.
journalist.
Is he a reporter? Is he a reporter?
Well, you're making it sound
Is
like
he a
it's
reporter?
yes, he is.
Argument.
He's not answering my question.
First of all, only one person can talk at a time. And that applies to you as well, Mr. Torres. Mr. Torres is talking over the attorney. Mr. Torres is not answering the question that's asked. I've instructed you several times, listen to the question and only ask what's asked and stop volunteering.
Okay.
Okay? So those are the ground rules. Everybody's professional here. Let's follow the ground rules.
Back to my question. You met with a number of different reporters, is that right?
Yes,
And you met with some civil rights attorneys representing the family of Laquan McDonald.
I don't know. They're attorneys. I don't know what type of attorneys they are.
Well, you knew they were representing the family of Laquan McDonald.
Right.
Met with them at your home.
Yes,
I invited them in and talked to them.
correct.
Anytime they wanted to talk to you, you talked. Is that right?
They came once.
And you invited them in and you spoke with them. Is that right?
Correct.
Now back to the 20th of October on Pulaski. You were driving northbound towards the scene where ultimately there was a shooting. Is that right?
Correct.
And when you were driving northbound, there were cars in front of you. Is that right?
Police cars.
Well, you told us just a few minutes ago when you're on direct examination that did you pull over twice for emergency vehicles passing you?
Yes,
And when you say emergency vehicles, those were police cars, correct? Right?
correct.
So these two police cars passed you, and you pulled over each and every time to allow those vehicles to pass.
Yes,
Those same vehicles that passed your vehicle stopped near the scene of where the shooting occurred. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if those were the exact same vehicles, but
So is it your testimony that you don't know where these two police cars that came by you went? You don't remember?
well, they're traveling north on Pulaski.
Did you see them stop?
No,
Okay, so as far as you know, those vehicles could have just been traveling northbound and went right past where the scene of the shooting. Is that right?
same vehicles that passed me up. I can still see their lights as I'm traveling northbound on
Okay.
Pulaski.
And when you
So,
say you could still see their lights were on top of their police vehicles,
correct.
right? And those police vehicles were stopped at the scene of the shooting, right?
I remember seeing one at first on Pulaski, so I don't.
Well, but you told
So-
us that two police cars passed you with the lights going, right?
Right.
Did you see at least one of those police cars stop near the area where you would later see Laquan McDonald?
Yes,
And is it possible that that second police car that passed you had also stopped in that same area?
yeah, I guess it's possible.
And as you sit here today, you don't remember exactly how many police vehicles were at the scene when you pulled over, is that right?
When I pulled over, I saw one, and then I saw another vehicle coming in my direction.
Coming
So that
towards
was-
you.
Right.
So the only police vehicles that you remember seeing being present at the scene were the one that passed you, is that right?
Well, there was two that passed me, and then
You don't know what happened to the second one. Is that your testimony?
yeah, and I can't tell you that those were the two that passed me were the two that were there in front of me. So I don't know.
Okay.
So
You saw
I'm
one,
assuming it is, but I can't
So
tell you
one-
definitely it is.
you saw one police vehicle with its lights on, Mars lights flashing, stopped, facing northbound on Pulaski, right?
Correct.
You saw another police vehicle approaching with its Mars lights on, coming south on Pulaski, facing you,
Correct.
with its headlights on.
Yes.
And I think if you told us correctly, there was another civilian vehicle stopped in front of you.
I stopped first. That vehicle pulled in front of me afterwards.
Okay, afterwards, meaning after you stopped, another civilian vehicle pulled to the left and stopped in front of you. Is that right?
Not immediately. Once I noticed that the other vehicle that was heading south in my direction, it was getting real close, I reversed. And once I reversed, then that other vehicle, he pulled in front of me. So,
Okay, and it was all before the shooting, right?
correct.
So there was another civilian vehicle parked in front of you at the time of the shooting, right?
Correct.
Now you're making some observations of a man who you've identified as Laquan McDonald, walking southbound on Pulaski.
Correct.
And from the distance that you were making an observation, you're making your observation, you could not see whether or not Laquan McDonald was armed, right?
Correct.
But you could tell there was something wrong with him. Isn't that right?
Just the way he was walking.
Right. That there was something not normal about his behavior, right?
Correct.
And that was readily apparent to you as an observer on the scene that night, that there was something not normal about Laquan McDonald's behavior. Is that right?
Correct.
You did see him look in the direction of the police officers that were standing on scene prior to being shot. You did
Right.
see
He
that.
looked towards the direction, yes.
And after the initial shooting, you did see Laquan McDonald on the ground, moving or turning. Is that right?
Moving.
You see him turning?
Yeah, I don't remember saying that he was turning. I remember saying that I saw him move after he fell.
So is it your testimony today that you did not see Laquan McDonald turning while he was on the ground?
Like I said, all I paid attention to was him moving. So
You did testify before the federal grand jury, am I right?
yes,
And that was on April 15th, 2015, right?
I can't remember the date, but I remember
You
testifying.
remember being in that big building downtown at 219 South.
Yes.
You met with a couple prosecutors prior to going into that grand jury and providing testimony.
Yes,
You remember a male and a female prosecutor meeting with you?
I can't remember.
Okay. Well, do you remember a grand juror asking you the following question, you providing the following answer? And I'm on page 21. After the first set of shots, you said the victim was on the ground. You said he was moving. Can you describe how he was moving after he was shot the first time? Witness, that's you. He just looked like he was just turning. That's all you know. Is that the answer you gave?
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Would anything refresh your recollection, such as looking at a transcript of your prior
If
testimony?
that's what it says there, I believe you.
Let me ask the question. We finished.
Okay.
Would looking at your prior sworn testimony, the transcript of, would that refresh your recollection as to what you told the grand jurors in the federal grand jury?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to mark this as Walsh's exhibit 1. And approach witness, Sean.
You may.
Show you what's marked as Walsh exhibit 1 for identification purposes, and I'm actually going to call the witness' attention if I could. First of all, if I could, Mr. Torres, have you ever looked at your grand jury testimony?
No. I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Have you reviewed any prior testimonies before testifying today?
No.
I ask you here, I'll show you this. This is what purports to be a transcript. This says a grand juror, and that says witness. Read that to yourself and tell me if it refreshes your recollection as to whether you were asked those
Right here?
questions.
Which is
Just
my
read that to yourself. Where it's a grand juror. See if that refreshes your recollection of what was going on when you were at the federal grand juror. Does that ring a bell now?
Yes.
Okay, so you agree with me that you told the grand jurors that he looked like he was just like turning. That's all you know, right?
Correct.
Judge, I want to jail under the rule of completion. He's not reading the entire answer that appears on the page in that very sentence.
You can ask it on redirect, so that objection's noted but overruled.
So after having read that, it would be fair to say that based upon what you were observing, from your point of view that night, you saw Laquan McDonald on the ground and appeared to be either moving or turning prior to the second set of shots coming.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. McKay asked you a lot of questions and kind of sum those up. Whatever you observed on October 20th, in terms of the shooting of Laquan McDonald, you didn't take any steps to report yourself as being a witness to these events on the evening that it happened. Is that right?
No.
You didn't do so the next day or even the day after. Fair to say?
Yeah, I remember exactly. Yeah, no.
Okay. And when you first saw the person we've identified as Laquan McDonald, who was, you can agree, behaving in a way that you found to be somewhat erratic. Would that be fair to say? Erratically.
Yeah, it wasn't a normal walk. So.
Okay. You believed, based on what you were seeing, that Mr. McDonald was looking for a way to escape from the police, right?
I was saying he was trying to get away from them. Yeah.
Escape from the police, right?
Okay. I guess if that's
Your
what.
word, wait, stop. That's your word, right?
Okay.
Was
Yes.
that your word that you believed Laquan McDonald was trying to escape from the police based on what you saw?
If you had that there, and if I said it, yes.
I'm going to ask you another. It's not my
I can't
word.
remember.
Okay.
Okay, I'm telling you what I remember now.
All right. Well, during cross-examination by Mr. McKay, you made a comment that while you were being interviewed by Hip Brother, the questioner was trying to infer something. Do you remember that testimony?
Correct.
When you were testifying before the federal grand jury, the United States attorneys who were asking you questions, they weren't trying to infer anything. They were just asking very simple questions, and you were providing answers. Is that right?
Who's that? Is that the one?
When you went downtown,
Downtown?
219 South
Okay.
Dearborn. You met with the United States attorney, Zachary Farley. You remember him?
Okay.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
And he asked you, page 11, so tell us a little bit about how he was moving as he was walking down the street. Do you remember being asked that question?
Yes.
Do you remember giving this answer? Well, he was walking on the sidewalk, and when he walked into the street, it seemed to me like he was looking for a way to get away from the police. You said that, right?
Yes.
Just like trying to walk away. He wasn't running. He was just looking for a way out. And he was, it seemed like he was confused the way his body movement was, but it didn't seem like he was running or anything. He was just walking. I can tell you he was looking for a way to escape from the police. Were those your exact words to the members of the federal grand jury?
If that's what it says there, I guess so.
Again, you want to take a look? I don't want you to take my word for it. You want to take a look?
I'll take a look
Refresh
at
your
it. Yeah, I'll look at it.
Again, previously marked, defendant's Walsh Exhibit 1 for identification purposes only. May I show a copy to the prosecutor?
Yes.
May I? No. Page 11. Page 11. May I approach the witness, Judge?
Yes.
Showing you page 11, Walsh Exhibit 1. I want you to take a peek at this. I don't want you to think I'm inferring anything. So tell us, is that what you told the grand jury?
This highlighted area here?
Yeah, go ahead. It's one sentence. You still reading
Yeah.
it?
No, I got it.
You got it.
Well, you got more stuff down here that's highlighted. That's why I asked you.
You want to read the whole thing?
No, it's good.
Okay.
I will good.
Is that what you told, ladies and gentlemen of the grand jury, that Laquan McDonald was trying to escape from the police? Based on what you saw. Is that what you told the grand jury?
Yes.
And when you told the ladies and gentlemen of the grand jury that that was what you believed at the time,
Yes, they was trying to get away.
And none of those prosecutors from the United States Attorney's Office were trying to infer anything, were they? It was all your words. It was your show, right?
Okay, yes.
Other than what you testified to a police officer giving you a motion with a flashlight, no police officer verbally told you to leave the scene. That'd be fair to say?
Correct.
And you did not have any verbal conversation with any police officers who were on the scene. Is that right?
Correct.
You made a U-turn of your vehicle and went southbound on Pulaski, just like the car in front of you did, right?
Correct.
And when you turned around to go southbound on Pulaski, there was a line of cars backed up on Pulaski because the road was closed due to what was going on there. Is that right?
Not heading south.
No, northbound towards the sea.
North. I was right in the beginning, so I can't. I know there was cars there, but I can't say exactly how many were there.
There were stopped cars because of the emergency vehicle in
Correct.
the middle of the street. And you said at some point in time, you saw an ambulance coming or pulling out of the fire department?
Yeah, that was all the way on 47th Street. So
47th and Pulaski?
Pulaski, yeah.
So that had been, what, about 6 blocks from the scene? 6 blocks south?
Probably more because you got place and streets that for each number. So
The observations, though, were around 41st and Pulaski.
right,
You said that the fire station you saw was 47th and Pulaski,
correct.
and the ambulance was pulling out and heading to the scene. Is that right?
Yes,
So that ambulance would have had to driven northbound on Pulaski to get to the scene, right?
correct.
And police officers had you and at least one other vehicle clear Pulaski so that ambulance could get there, right?
I was already towards the curb. I was nowhere near the Laquan McDonald to block any emergency vehicles. So they have plenty of room. If that's what you're trying to say.
It's not what I'm trying to. You spend a lot of time during cross-examination trying to anticipate what lawyers are trying to ask you. I'm going to ask you.
That's overruled.
I'm going to ask you if you might be able to just answer the questions. All right. The ambulance you saw pull out of the fire department at 47th and Pulaski and head north towards the scene of the shooting, right?
Correct.
And your vehicle and
Well, I don't know if he had north. I saw him pulling out. I was already heading west on 47th.
you
So
didn't pay much attention, right?
I did pay attention. I saw him pulling out. I had to stop and wait till he pulled out.
And you didn't see which direction the ambulance went to
He
go south.
went east. He went east. I didn't pay attention to that.
East on Pulaski?
No, on 47th
Okay, so where did you see the ambulance pulling out? 47th and what?
near Pulaski, but they're on 47th. They're not on Pulaski.
So did you see the ambulance go towards Pulaski?
Yes.
Did you pay attention which direction it went?
No, I'm driving westbound, so I'm paying attention to my drive.
So the answer to my question is no, you didn't.
No.
I got one.
Yes, take your time.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have nothing further.
Okay. Mr. Fahey?
Judge, I would adopt the cross-examinations of the whole conversation.
Your Honor, I would like to adopt Mr. Pugh's cross-examination.
Okay. Okay. And Mr. Fahey, other than adopting those cross-examinations, do you have any additional questions?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Pugh, I did not hear you adopt any cross, correct?
I will do it, Judge.
I'm not telling you
No,
or suggesting anything. I'm just asking if you are.
I adopt it all.
Okay. Any redirect?
Possibly, Judge. As you know, the case is governed by Garrity versus New Jersey, and there are documents that were not made available to the prosecution as a result of that case, and we've had a very strict Garrity law. The court on September 5th entered an order that indicated that all prior statements, whether compelled or otherwise, that defendants may use for any purpose at trial could be made available to us. Counsel McKay used an IPRA statement that we don't have a copy of, and so we would ask for a brief recess to ask him to show us the document, but allow us to look at it to determine if we need to utilize it in any way. And if not, then, we're fine. But if so, then we would like to potentially question a witness based on that.
Okay, Mr. McKay?
I have no objection. I'll give Ms. Holmes a copy of.
And there's no Verity issues related to that, because he's a witness.
He's a witness, and further, his interview to Ipper wasn't compelled. He's a civilian providing information.
Right,
Okay.
Judge, but that sort of distorts the whole notion of hearing. It's
I understand.
derivative information that we have been extremely meticulous about not, accessing, so that we have a very clean record.
I understand, and it has
So we
been
don't
it's been very strictly complied with, and everybody's followed the rules, and so there's no issue there. But Mr. McKay is going to give you a copy. We'll be in a short recess.
Thank you, Judge.
And Mr. Torres, you are still under oath. You are not to discuss and you're still on the witness stand, so you are not to discuss your testimony with anyone. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about that? No. Okay. And that includes any of the attorneys.
Okay.
Okay. Court's in recess.
That's that.
Thank you. The record should reflect that all of the defendants are present with all of their attorneys, all of the special prosecutors are present. The witness is still on the witness stand. I'm just going to remind you again, you are still under oath. Okay, any redirect?
Yes. Would you like to ask the witness a couple questions on the rule with respect to testimony elicited by Mr. McKay?
Okay.
Do you recall being asked by Mr. McKay questions regarding your statement to Investigator Lubeck on October 28, 2014 at 3:47 p.m. at the IPRA office?
Yes.
And do you recall Mr. McKay reading you the question that Mr. Lubeck asked you and the answer that you gave?
Yes.
And was the question asked of you that day? And describe those movements, I guess. Do you see how he's moving or?
Yes.
And was your answer that day, your complete answer that day? To be honest with you, it looks like he was trying to get up. Cause he was already hurt. So I don't know what it is to get shot or to get a bullet in me. But I'm assuming you gotta be in pain. So anybody's gonna move if they're in pain. And he was no longer a danger to shooting, continue shooting. If or no longer a threat if he was already on the ground. Do you recall giving that answer?
Yes, that sounds familiar.
Do you recall being asked some questions by Mr. Pugh regarding your testimony? Okay, I'm getting ready to tell you. Regarding your testimony before the federal grand jury, September 2014, the special grand jury, September 2014, on April 15th, 2015 at 9:30.
I'm sorry, which is it? The federal grand jury or the special grand jury?
This is the federal grand jury.
Federal grand jury on what date?
April 15th, 2015, 9:30.
Thank you.
Before the U.S. Attorney, Zach Hardy, and this April period. You recall being asked a question regarding that grand jury testimony.
I remember being there.
I'm sorry?
I'll withdraw for now.
Okay. You can proceed.
And Mr. Pugh was asking you questions about the witness moving. You recall those questions?
Yeah. It's been a while ago. Yeah, I remember hearing it.
Asking you questions.
Yes.
And you recall him reading to you your grand jury
Correct.
answer. And in fact, he showed you the answer.
Yes.
And the question that was asked is, after the first set of shots, you said the victim was on the ground. You said he was moving. Can you describe how he was moving after he was shot the first time? Do you recall that?
Yes. Yes.
And is the answer that you gave that day the entire answer? He just looked like he was just turning. That's all you know. I'm assuming he's in pain. because he had just finished getting shot. So it seemed like all he was doing was just moving. Do you recall giving that answer?
Yes.
I have nothing else.
Okay, you said no further questions?
Nothing.
Okay, any recross, Mr. McKay?
Mr. Torres, when the
No,
shooting-
I'm sorry, it's just recross, not recross.
like I said mistakenly yesterday. Mr. Torres, where exactly were you parked when you saw the shooting?
I was on the east side of the street facing north.
And
So that would object is beyond the scope of the reading today.
It actually is. So that's sustained.
so, okay, when you saw Mr. McDonald moving on the ground, like Ms. Holmes just asked you about, where were you exactly?
In my car.
Still 2 car lengths away?
Yes.
So we would see that. Sorry, what kind of car did you have?
So
Objection, Judge. Beyond the scope.
It is sustained.
So while you're in your car, while Mr. McDonald is moving, that would still be just 2 car lengths away. True?
Right.
Nothing further.
Okay. Any recross, Mr. Pugh? Mr. Fahey?
No, Judge.
Okay. Anything further, Ms. Brown Holmes?
No, Judge. Not at this.
Not at this witness. All right, thank you. You're excused. You may step down. Okay, let's just have a quick sidebar regarding scheduling. All right, so it is almost 1:10 p.m. We're going to be in recess for our lunch break until 2:10.